We're talking about the most expensive program in U.S. history, $400 billion over the course of 12 years. So the Pentagon has already invested a lot into it already. It's expected to top $1.5 trillion in the course of its life cycle, so over 55 years. And it's 70% over the original budget. They've had problems with things like bulkhead cracks, heaviness, shakiness of the wings, delays in software. But despite all of those problems, it is a huge job creator. The F-35 accounts for 133,000 jobs and counts 1,300 companies as suppliers. That includes 41,000 jobs in Texas, 1,100 jobs in Arizona, just to name a few. 45 states in total are employed by the F-35 or have workers in the F-35 program. So that means, Mark, of course, it has a lot of congressional allies and it makes a huge economic impact.
But
Mark.
Megan, as you know, the argument can be made weapons programs aren't meant to be jobs programs. How does the size protect it from sequester?
Well, let's talk about the sequester's impacts on defense. We know $45 billion of the cuts would come from defense, so the F-35 could certainly be under scrutiny. That's no question there. But if you take a look at the size of the contracts, now it's more likely that smaller contracts are going to be cut first, and it's fairly likely that no contracts will be cut the first year, and there just may be fewer new ones that we're talking about. So working in its favor, Lockheed was just awarded on December 28th nearly $5 billion in contracts, and that was just days before the sequester deadline. So that's one thing to point out. Another thing you've got to mention about the F-35 is that other countries are also relying on this program. They've invested in this program. Norway, Canada, Italy, most recently Israel and Japan. Allies have agreed to purchase 721 fighters, so that's about a quarter of the aircrafts. The F-35, Mark, is expected to become the dominant export fighter, so that's just one other reason. Mark?
Megan, you mentioned 1,300 companies supplying this program. Who takes the biggest hit if those cuts do go into effect?
No question Lockheed would take the biggest hit. The fighters account for 13% of the company's $46.5 billion in revenue. That was in 2011. Now, other companies have some hedge, though. United Tech builds the engine, and they've got some cover in the commercial market. Northrop, another big contractor, also happens to build 40% of one of Boeing's jets that could get a boost if the F-35s get cut or get trimmed. So those companies have some cover. No question Lockheed would take the biggest hit.